This is ACC Nation, your source for ACC sports coverage. Connect with us at accnation.net. Listen to our podcast and streaming radio. Watch us on YouTube and follow us on your favorite social media outlet. Now, here's Will and Jim.
NC State football. ACC Nation preview with our special guest, Evan from the RedWhiteNetwork.com, co-host of Red White Podcast, joins us to talk Pac football. Thanks for joining us, Evan. Appreciate you dropping in.
Anytime, fellas. Thanks for having me.
We'll get into some X's and O's here. Let's find out what we can expect from NC State.
Yeah, Evan, good to chat with you. A lot new for this Wolfpack team in 2025. So let's start offensively. You got a new offensive coordinator. Out goes Robert Anae. In comes Kurt Roper. Schematically, what's going to change offensively?
Hopefully everything, because the offense was inept last year, and I think everybody's hoping that we are more dynamic this year. I'm sure we'll get into it, but lost a ton on defense at graduation and the portal. But you have talent on offense. The question is just going to be, do they utilize the talent on the offensive side? It's just hasn't been Dave Doran's MO, but hopefully he adjusts to what he's got, and we will see. So schematically, I don't really know. I don't think anybody knows, and I think that's the interesting part.
So CJ Bailey came on after the injury to quarterback Grayson McCall, and really showed a lot for a freshman. But what do you think he needs to improve on this season?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I think he got a lot of praise, but he did make a lot of fresh mistakes going through his reads. Being patient and getting to the deep ball, moving levels on his reads, I think was a big challenge for him. Maybe just the speed of the game or whatnot, because he tended to check down quite a bit, tended to kind of go what was comfortable for him. So hopefully we see some growth out of him, and I think he can. He's excuse me, talented enough, certainly. What are we going to get out of him? I think that's the exciting part. Like, the ceiling is, who knows, right? I think you got kind of a baseline of what you can expect. A decently talented quarterback who seems composed. I think that's probably his best asset. He doesn't seem to get rattled ever. He seems kind of calm and collected, and he's relatively inexperienced, even at the high school level. He wasn't asked to do a whole lot. He was throwing balls to Jeremiah Smith and some other guys that were on his team. And, just getting more used to the college game, getting used to running the offense. And I'm going to guess that Kurt Roper's offense is going to be a lot more simplified than what Robert Anae was trying to do. And maybe that'll help him. But that's what we're hoping to see, man. We're hoping to just see some growth there from his ability to, move across his reads, willingness to throw the deep ball, and just playing loose like I think he can. But it's a lot of unknowns for this team this year, and I feel sorry I'm going to cop out on that answer a lot today, but we just don't know. We didn't have a spring game, not a whole lot of media coverage out of practice these days, and so many new faces. It'll be interesting to see, but there's certainly talent on offense. There's talent around him that he should be able to excel.
And he can run, which will help. But as far as the running backs go, we know Hollywood Smothers is there, and he was outstanding, averaged over 8 yards a carry. Behind that, everyone of consequence is gone. So who's going to back him up?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Right now, it seems to be freshman Duke Scott, redshirt freshman Duke Scott. He's getting a lot of praise. Elite athlete, kind of a little, I don't want to say bowling ball guy because he's taller than that, but just a stocky kind of running back that they really like. But he's a redshirt freshman, hasn't played any college football, so who the heck knows what you're going to get out of him, right? Jonathan Paylor, kind of a Nyheim Hines type guy, super fast, track speed. Didn't get on the field last year as he was, transitioning to from wide receiver to running back, or trying to figure out where they were going to use him. I think people are looking to see what we can get out of him. if he's healthy. I think there's been speculation that maybe he's not been fully healthy this summer. So, but after that, depth is a real concern at some positions, and running back is definitely one of them.
Outside of Casey Concepcion, who left in the portal, and get a lot back at wide receiver, so it feels like you're only really not too much of a question there at receiver, is there?
No, wide receiver should be the strongest unit on this team, I would think. You have Noah Rogers, who's an elite athlete, and by all accounts, as CJ Bailey gets better, who's going to benefit the most from that is Noah Rogers. Wesley Grimes, Wake Forest transfer, was here last year. Uh, he's been they said is laser timed at 4.25 at 6'2", 200 pounds, which is unbelievable if that's accurate. But that was the report coming out. I mean, Pack Football tweeted it, so I'm like, okay. Then you have Keenan Jackson, who showed some flashes last year. Terrell Anderson, a kind of a big body. There's plenty of guys that are available there. How Joker Phillips decides to use them is sort of the $1 million question. Nobody really knows what his rotations are going to be and who's going to get the most snaps. But if I'm them, I'm force feeding Rodgers and Grimes as much as possible and letting Anderson and Jackson kind of fill in. And again, how do they use Jonathan Paylor? Do they put him in the slot? Do they move him in the backfield? How do they work a guy with that kind of speed around? It'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, offensive line lost three starters, but picked up some guys in the portal. But I think the one question that I get out of just by kind of doing some research, nobody knows who's going to start at center. Just go over the offensive line, see who's back and what we need to know.
Yeah. I'm gonna big sign this one because it's another unknown. It's one of those we get back Anthony Carter. There's mixed feelings on how good he was. You have guys like Teague Anderson and Val Erickson who played some football before. Rylan Van probably going to be your center. Didn't get a whole lot of snaps last year, so I think there's some unknowns there. We've heard guys like Sowles Jr., freshman, has been excelling this in the summer camps. Darian Rivers, Yusuf Mugerbel, who has been an interesting journey. 4-star kid from North Carolina, went to Florida, got hurt in a car accident, went to Colorado, didn't get on the field, transferred back home to North Carolina. I mean, he was a 4-star kid coming out of high school, huge body. Can he put it together? He should be old enough. He's developed. He's a grown man. There's some bodies there. Who's going to excel at it? It's tough. Jacarius Peak is your best offensive lineman by far. How do they use him? Where does his role be? He was kind of undersized last year, but still super effective. Still one of your best linemen. Then you have guys like Kamen Smith, who's 6'5", 330, and they've raved about him. Can he get consistent time on the field? I think those are the kind of interesting questions. It's a big unknown, and it's just a couple positions on the offensive line where you're like, well, I don't know who's going to fill that spot in. I think there's enough talented that they'll make it work, but you just never know right now. Again, so many unknowns.
All right, let's switch over to defense. And I mean, we'll be honest, this unit wasn't quite as good as it was in recent years, but now you lose defensive coordinator Tony Gibson, who's now the head coach at Marshall. In steps DJ Elliott. Again, just like with the offense, what's going to change defensively, schematically?
Well, they definitely moving away from the 3-3-5, moving towards a more 3-down lineman. I mean, 4-down lineman. They might run some 3-4. Kind of depends on what they have the bodies for, what they think they have the bodies for, right? It's not easy making that transition from the 3-3-5 to a new front. So I think you'll probably see a lot of 3-4 setups there, just because that's what they have the bodies for. But you do have some guys like Brandon Cleveland, who I think is a real talent. He is probably the best defensive player on this team, and I don't know if he lived up to his potential last year, but he's still young, only a junior, and I think he's a real difference maker in the middle. If they get some help around him, teams were able to double team him last year and just keep him from being effective in what he needed to do. But does this scheme switch help him? I think so. I think you'll see guys like Travali Price on the outside playing, D end, excel a little bit more in this setup. But it's one of the unknowns, and we really don't know what the scheme is going to look like. I don't think they're going to blitz a whole lot, or not nearly as much as Tony Gibson. Which, is that a good thing? I don't know. There were some effective times when the blitzes were really working, but I can call 5 or 6 blitzes, and I'm like, damn, why did you do that? And it cost us um, cost a couple games, and just cost you some points by being overly aggressive when you didn't need to be. Where is that balance going to be? Does Dave Doran go back towards the Dave Huxtable years when it was very bend but don't break, right? Keep everybody in front of you, don't give up the big plays. Is that what tries to do, or keep trying to be disruptive, right? That was Gibson's thing: blitz a lot, try to get turnovers, be disruptive on defense. Unknown. I really don't know. There's some talent there, but what I like what they brought in on the portal on the defensive side. While they might not be uh, big names, or they might not be guys from big schools, they brought in a lot of production. They brought in guys who were all ACC players. They brought in a guy who was first team All MEAC from Norfolk State. Like I know that's people are like, well, it's Norfolk State, but yeah, but production is production. When you play at these kind of levels, I think you can play football. I think that translates. When you're in NC State, he's not transferring into Ohio State and having to compete with those guys, right? It's a different level. So they went and brought in production, and I really like that. I really like that strategy there, right? You don't have to get the biggest guys, but you get productive players, and I think that's really what's going to help your defense not be a dumpster fire. You could bring in a bunch of backups from other Power Five schools that didn't have playing time and don't know what you get, but you have guys that can produce. Now, can they produce on this level? I think that will be the question, and we'll learn that pretty soon.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the names to know on the defensive line, Brandon Cleveland, Travali Price, but quite frankly, there are a lot of question marks on the defensive line in terms of depth and everything. What else do we need to know?
Yeah, there's a ton. I mean, you got guys like, and I'm going to butcher his name, Adi Dyer, North Texas defensive tackle, Charlie Price, Alexander Felton. There's a bunch of guys here. Isaiah Shirley is a guy they moved all over the place. They even put him in his fullback occasionally. He's just, a talented guy that can play multiple positions. He's athletic enough, so they'll move him around. It's going to be interesting. Justin Terrell, yeah, there's guys there. I just don't know what you're going to get out of him. Hollingsworth returns, played a bunch last year. Um, there's just again unknowns, and I don't know if this is very interesting, but these are question marks. I'm not sure. There seems to be talent there. How they use them is really going to be the question. Is it a 4-man front? Is it a 3-man front? That kind of thing.
Yeah, and if they do go foreign linebacker, it's going to be interesting because obviously Sean Brown's back. You get Caden Fordham back after missing the last 6 games of last season, but this is where State really loaded up in the portal. So if they do go, more of a 4 linebacker front, with all that depth, this is really going to help them.
Yeah, AJ Richardson was the guy I was referencing from Norfolk State. He's a linebacker that ultra productive at the MEAC level, first team All MEAC, and there's other guys around him that you know should be able to help produce. Trey Thomas, McBride. I've heard different other names coming through this spring. I mean, this from this past spring. But how is Caden Fordham going to rebound from the knee injury? I think that's does Elijah Groves live up to the hype? Super um, hyped up linebacker that they recruited over Kentucky. Sean Brown continues to learn a position. I mean, he's a superior athlete, but does he grasp the linebacker position? I think he relied too much on his athleticism last year, found himself out of position. He's not going to be asked as much to do as much as he was in Tony Gibson's offense. So I think that's going to be good for some of these guys. But there's some unknowns in there. But I do like the additions of Richardson in particular, and how does he fit in with assuming Fordham's healthy, because he was super potential, to be honest. He was ultra productive, got hurt, and then how do those recover? You never know what Peyton Wilson was able to recover after a dozen knee surgeries. So I think Caden Fordham it was in good hands there.
Yeah, this it feels like the biggest question on his defense is secondary because they lost, I think, every starter from the secondary is gone, and they filled it back a little bit with the portal, but feel like they're trying to promote some guys who were maybe depth pieces last year.
Yeah, certainly. Devin Marshall, while he was a depth piece last year, got a lot of playing time. I think he'll be your starting corner. Brian Nelson, transferred from North Texas, again, um, productive guy at that level. And I think those will be your two starting corners. And how do they fill in behind them? Javon Bailey, highly recruited redshirt freshman. Jackson Vick, local kid, elite athlete, got on the field a lot last year towards the end of games. Really flashed at times. He would make some plays like, who was that? Oh, that was Jackson Vick. So there's some potential there. Definitely have the athletes back there, but how does that all come together as a unit? It'll be interesting. But I think you're okay with Devin Marshall and Brian Nelson. I think we'll be better than folks expect, given how much they lost at the corner position.
Jim?
Thanks, Will. Evan, a couple of things that you guys have just gone over that sounds familiar based upon all the previews we've done so far. Uh, the impact of the transfer portal, so many different new players coming in. You've got new coaches, new schemes, and to hear also in your voice some of that frustration of, gee, we didn't get to see a spring game, we haven't had access. This sounds like everybody else this year too. It's spread throughout college football, which I don't think is a great thing, especially the access part of it. If you want to build up some enthusiasm and get people interested and on board, you need to let media in and watch what's going on. On the other hand, I guess coaches are concerned about showing their hand in some way. I don't know. It's not a good thing from that standpoint, but crazy stuff. A lot of changes, and I've also brought up NIL, how that has impacted a lot of rosters. So I'm sure that you're looking at a roster and you're going, I have no clue who some of these people are. They're brand new.
Yeah,
Some of the people that you've mentioned are just that. They're brand new, you know?
yeah, I think you're exactly right. There is some. I think everybody is kind of feeling the same thing, the unknowns. To me, I get it's always been that way. Coaches have always been ultra private. I want to keep everything closed. I don't want anybody stealing our secrets, that kind of deal.
Seen it all
You know,
before, man.
yeah, exactly, right? We know what you're going to get. And by the second game, it's all going to be on the table for the most part, right? It's
Yeah.
it's do you do more good by promoting your team and letting people get close to them in a day and age when there's been so much turnover that you don't know who's there and you have these unknowns? Like I think you get more out of it by connecting with your fans and doing those sorts of things. I think not having a spring game was a huge miss. Whether it could have been a a skills challenge like Ole Miss did or some other event. I've been beating the drum for a long time that NC State needs to go all in on a spring, make it a big event, get everybody involved. You get the younger generations interested and try to just keep cultivating that fan base. But again, they let the football coach paranoia win out. Like, nope, not having a spring game. It's a wasted practice. You're like, come on now. Like, just it seems so short sighted to me in the big picture of what they do, especially given the roster turnover. And you're like, who are these guys? I'd like to know them, right? I'd like to see just some potential and get everybody excited and all that, right? You just don't know.
I
And I think
swear,
that's a
I think
big
we
problem.
talked about this same thing last year.
Probably.
You know,
Probably.
it,
Yeah.
it, it's just a repeat, and it's I'm right on board with you, man. It's like build up your future, get the young fans involved and get the excitement going. You don't have to actually have a game per se. You can do a lot of other things, but get that enthusiasm going. That's a great thing. One thing, and you know anybody who watches this podcast knows that I get on Dave Doran's rear end on a regular basis. And quite frankly, I wonder how much longer. But of course, then we talk about contract and all that. So whether or not it's viable to buy somebody out. But I'm looking at here's his 13th season, and is that foretelling? Is that foreboding that it's the 13th season, and if he doesn't deliver, that maybe Dave is not going to be there next season? Because I think when ESPN's FBI projecting 6-6 and 58th ranking among college football teams. I don't put a whole lot in any preseason rankings or top 25s anymore. They tend to be nothing more than marketing garbage. You get a couple games under your belt and we'll know exactly what you are and what you can do. But I wonder, is there going to come a time that Dave's, goodwill there is only going to carry him so far?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think we've been projecting that. We thought so last year, right? Could have been the end last year.
Yeah.
I didn't think he wanted to go out like that. So uh, you can see it either way, right? I think a lot of signs are pointing to him being sort of tired of this new era in football, and he doesn't really have anything else to prove
Yeah.
at NC State. Um, he hasn't won a championship, obviously, but I think I don't know. It doesn't seem to have the fire that he has before. And I think a lot of people are projecting that if they do go 6-6, does he get pressure to leave or to step down? I think it's highly likely. Now you saw what the excitement for the basketball program has been so far in the last like 6 months since Kevin Keatts was fired,
Right.
and they brought in a Will Wade, exciting coach, and the enthusiasm here is first on a long time that most NC State fans are looking forward to basketball season more than football season, with football right around the corner. So that's telling, right? I mean, I think at some point you need to keep your fans involved. Now, I can also see Dave Doran going 8-5 and be like, "Peace, I'm done. I'm going to go retire to the lake. I won another eight win season. Here you go. Can pat himself on the back and be done with
Good.
it."
Yeah.
So I think it's a higher than 50% chance that this is his last season, one way or the other.
Okay. Uh, yeah, it's interesting that conversation is limitless in a lot of ways. So
Yeah.
I'm really I'm hearing a lot of you guys brought this up. You pointed the finger there at Duke Scott, and I have been reading all kinds of stuff. No whether that's fire or it's just smoke. And often there's a fire where there's smoke. So I'm interested in watching him perform. He
Yeah.
sounds like somebody who is going to be a very dynamic player. So
Yeah, I agree. And you see the numbers and the measurables, like, damn, this kid can move. But NC State fans will be quick to point out they said the same thing about Demi Sumo. They're like, oh, he can win the Heisman, right? He's elite. He's untackable in practice. He's unbelievable.
yeah,
And he was fine. Never stayed on the field. Went to Kentucky. Didn't do a whole lot. They didn't really know how to use him either. And I think State fans are, maybe a little cautious in their optimism that's in that regards, which is very not normal for State fans. We're very optimistic, blindly, you know, going like we're going all the way. We're going to do it all this year, right? But I think we've seen it enough times where people are, um, I'm going to hold out. I'm going to reserve judgment until you can show me. But yeah, all the reports about Duke Scott are like he's legit. Does the offensive line help him? Are they good enough? To answer Will's question, Jalen Grant, I forgot the name, kid from Purdue, is probably going to be your starting center. Um, and then you have Peak and Carter, and then do Kamen Smith and Teague Anderson hold up on the other side. I think it's kind of as new faces there. The right side of your line is what's going to be in question mark, and that comes back to the running backs. Are they able to help the running backs? And does the scheme help the running backs? And is CJ Bailey able to stretch the field deep so that they can help the running backs? Right, all these things are in question. I think there's no doubt that Hollywood Smothers is the best athlete on his team, and he should get the bulk of the carries at the running back position. what happens after that, right? You can't in this day and age run a running back 30, 40 times and expect him to get through healthy, right?
Yeah.
So you better have some depth. And running back position, you don't have a whole lot of depth. Quarterback position, you don't have a whole lot of depth. So you got to stay healthy. And I think that's going to be very important for those two positions in particular.
I'm looking forward also to Bailey because I think he's going to progress. But I'm
Yeah.
hoping that's going to be the case because I want to see some, uh, forward motion by some of these players.
Yeah.
Will, just a little housekeeping information here for you because of the way my new camera configuration is at the moment. I cannot see you. So if when you pass off, let me know, okay? Or if you want to get back in. So
No
just
problem.
okay. Very good. Let's get into our schedule and talk here a little bit about what we anticipate. It's a thumbs up, thumbs down situation, or as we like to say, or I like to say, it's the will waggle. If you get one of those games where, yeah, well, I'd rather not say right at this moment because you don't know it's close. So let's go down some of these games. I think State starts out in a pretty good situation here very early. I mean, we're so close to the season starting here. Thursday, August 28th, East Carolina is going to visit NC State, 7 p.m. game. It's going to be on the ACC network. And by the way, State fans, there's a lot of TV time for you this season, so make the most of it. So thumbs up, thumbs down on that ECU game.
Feel pretty good about the ECU game. Dave does not like them. I think losing to them last year in the bowl game was I don't it was hopefully eye-opening for the program because there was a lot of red flags there. I think ECU will be okay this year, but it's going to be you know, they lost a lot of talent,
Right.
and we'll see what they're able to do. They'll come in here fired up because they always do, but State should be able to handle them, and that's
I,
thumbs up. Sorry, it's a long thumbs up.
I was gonna say I don't think anybody who's still on the roster from last season likes ECU right now.
No,
No.
not at all. So they should have plenty of motivation to come out of that game fired up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and being a home game, boy, that ought to be one of those where fans show up in droves. So,
Oh yeah.
you know, on Saturday, September 6th, it's Virginia traveling to NC State. It's a 12 nooner. ESPN2 is the location for that television broadcast. So let us know. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Thumbs up. Sorry, Will. Virginia stinks, so it shouldn't be a problem.
I've been saying this game is a toss up until I know what Virginia is, because quite frankly, I do not know.
Yeah. Again.
Like,
Yeah.
but I would probably honestly, I'd lean State because I still feel them the more talented team.
Yeah.
On Thursday, September 11th, I'm noticing a trend here on Thursday games right up front. September 11th at Wake Forest, 7:30 ESPN, some more TV time. You can't beat that. I mean, that's some of the best free advertising in the world. So thumbs up, thumbs down against Wake Forest.
All right. Do I have to speak from the logical brain, or can I, be optimistic here? Because
Man, you
in
could be
theory,
a homer on this one, I think. So,
well, like this, and this applies to the next one too, that State should win, and I think State feels like they should win that matchup almost every year. But we're 1-10 in the last 11 at Wake Forest.
amazing.
That ain't good.
Blows
So
my mind.
yeah, it's unnecessarily terrible. But who knows what Wake Forest is going to be? I mean, they just they brought in Dickert from Washington State, and they're no more slow mesh, Dave Clawson nonsense. What's going to happen? I don't know. State should be more talented than Wake Forest, but that's always the case, and we always struggle there. So, as my 8-year-old would do when he doesn't want to say he likes something, he holds his thumb like sideways. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm going
Okay.
to do there.
We finally start getting into some Saturday action here on the 20th of September at Duke. So it's pretty close. It's a stone's throw. Thumbs
Yeah,
up.
same thing. I feel like State should be better, but Duke was actually pretty good last year. They put a ton of money into Mensa from Tulane at the quarterback position. Um, do you believe in Manny Diaz? Is kind of the question mark there. Um, I feel okay in State's history going to Wallace Wade, but at the same time, those Duke games are always close. It's not like Wake Forest were inept when we go there, but the games are always close. I feel like State should have the talent advantage in that game, but that'll be closer than a lot of people think. Always is.
Okay. Saturday, September 27th, Virginia Tech travels to Raleigh to take on the Pack. A thumbs up, thumbs down.
Um, Thumbs up because they're at home. I think Virginia Tech is one of those unknowns. I know they have drones and have some talent back, but what kind of pressure is Brent Pry feeling? Are they going to be
Wow.
able to, um, you know, do they have a slow start early on and he's under pressure in week 5? Very possible. Um,
Yeah,
but given that it's at home, I feel okay about playing the Hokies there. We're very evenly matched teams talent wise, I think. But again, feel okay.
I think that would be a very dangerous loss for the Hokies.
Yeah, agreed.
For Pry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
October 4th, Saturday, Campbell at NC State. A lot of home game activity as well. So the schedule looks pretty good.
Yeah, thumbs up. We should beat Campbell. No problem.
Okay. I can never remember the name of Campbell's team. What is
The
it?
Fighting Camels.
The Camels. Yeah,
Okay.
Camels.
All right. All right. I've forgotten it already. All right, Saturday, October 11th. This is a big game and a tough challenge because you're going into South Bend at Notre Dame. It's a game that will be on the Peacock Network at 3:30 in the afternoon. So, boy, that's a challenge.
That's a big L. That's a thumbs down. I don't think there's any way we stay in that stadium. I
Okay.
think they beat the pants off of us.
All right. Well, you never know.
You don't, but and we played them close last time we were there. I'll say that. If Naheem Hines doesn't get hurt in that game or in the Clemson game, I think that's a real difference maker in that Notre Dame game and actually keep it a little bit closer. But Notre Dame's super talented. They're really good.
There's a reason they're in that top 5, or should be.
Mhm.
There's a break after that, and then coming up next, it's Saturday, October 25th at Pitt. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
That's a game that I think if Dave Dorn wants to have a season, a better season than the experts are predicting, he's got to win that game. I don't think Pitt is going to be great, but Narduzzi seems to be able to scrape together some solid defenses and somehow, get by. But being on the road doesn't really scare me. It's not a very intimidating atmosphere. But they've got to win that one if they want to have a good season because it is a very much a toss-up game, similar to the Hokies game, I think. But being on the road, I'd probably take an L there if I'm at this point in the season.
So this next game, I think, is interesting because we've got a couple of teams that are that have got talent and the capability of pulling one out of the rabbits out of the hat, the rabbit out of the hat. Saturday, November 1st, it's Georgia Tech coming to Raleigh to take on the Pack. Thumbs up or thumbs down here?
Yeah, thumbs up because it's at home. I think Georgia Tech, Brent Key's obviously had them competitive last year. They were actually a pretty strong team. State went down to Georgia Tech and lost by 1 point on again, talking about Tony Gibson, that was a game that I think if he was a little bit more conservative towards the back end of that game, they hold on to win. I think they were a little aggressive and got burnt. And that's same statement for the next game you're going to read off here. But I think State at home against Georgia Tech, feel okay.
Got a break coming up after that, and then the next game will be on Saturday, November 15th. Going to be traveling to Miami. we've heard a lot about how Miami is going to be better, that they're ranked, and people anticipate something here, but uh, we're never sure until we actually see them on the field. So,
Miami could be on quit watch at that point. It's very well. I honestly, if you look at their
yeah.
schedule, we'll tell early on how they're going to be at the end of the year. Obviously, they have talent because it's Miami, and they always do. I It's on the road, not an intimidating atmosphere. We've typically played okay there. Again, last time we were there, if Tony Gibson doesn't blitz on 4th and 6 and get burnt over the top for a touchdown, we win that game on the road. Um, but they are talented. It's likely an L, but I think the caveat is that they could be on quit watch by the end of that year, by that time in the season. And then if State is on what I say, it's at this point they'd be 7-2, so they'd have pretty good vibes going into Miami, who's again quitting. Then they have a chance. Probably an L as it looks right now, though, but there is some
Okay.
potential to win that game.
Yeah, we can talk about thumbs up, thumbs down, or the wiggle waggle on all these games at this point,
Yeah.
and it's just it's merely projection. It's just thoughts. So who
Hmm.
knows? And you're right. You never know if Miami has a tough go of it at the front end of the season. It could all just go down the tubes for them at the end there. So we've seen it happen before. So it's very simple. The next game up is on a Friday. It's November 21st. Florida State at NC State. This thing is already lined up for TV. 8 o'clock ESPN. So somebody's anticipating an interesting game here.
Yeah, it should be a good game. It always is. Florida State, we're like their Wake Forest. They feel like they should beat us every time. But they come to Raleigh and they really have a hard time. Again, very much like Miami, they could be on quit watch at this point. No idea what you're going to get out of them this year. How much is Mike Norvell able to squeeze out of this team? What does they get from the quarterback position?
Mhm.
Um, a lot of unknowns for Florida State at this point in the season. They've been known to roll over, and I feel pretty good about playing them in Carter Finley on a Friday night at 8 o'clock. Like, it's a weird one to say I'm going to take the W there, but history is on our side in that one.
And the last game of the season, you get to take on. I really should stop calling Belichick Darth Hoodie, but I mean, I just love to do it. Um, North Carolina at NC State, Saturday, November 29th. That's the last regular season game. That should be a real fun matchup.
It should be a fun matchup. Who knows what you're going to get from Carolina this year? I think that is one of the most
That's
interesting
true.
storylines in college football, not just the ACC. I think it's going to be super interesting. What does Bill Belichick bring to the college game? And is he able to hold it together for 12 games this year? You know, I don't think anybody's super confident in that. They are going to be the opposite of what they've been under the last few years with a very high-powered offense. I suspect they are going to lean heavily into their defense. Do they have that level of defensive talent? I don't know. Are their schedule is very front-loaded? Are they able to handle TCU and Minnesota? Two teams that are probably equally as talented than them. TCU's are actually coming in favored in that game. So I really don't know what to expect from Carolina. It's going to be interesting, but we do own them in our house. It's just unquestionable that we will win that game. You can just bank it. I don't care if we're 1-10 going into that game. We're going to beat them at home.
Home
Just
field advantage,
right.
baby. Can't beat
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's a possibility here. I mean, based upon everything that you've uh, been sharing, this team is definitely bowl bound, I would think, and hopefully they don't have the repeat there of what happened last season. Will, any last questions for Evan?
Yeah. Well, first off, noticing, the entire schedule, how state leaves the state of North Carolina 3 times this season,
Crazy.
which could be very well to their benefit, quite frankly. Second question, and my last question, looking at the kind of the tenure of Dave Dorn now as he enters year number 13. Sorry, Swifties, no numerology, no Easter eggs here. He's been consistent 7, 8, 9 wins pretty much every year throughout his tenure. Let's play hypothetical and say this is his last year. What is Dave Dorn's legacy?
That's a good question. I think this year will rightly or wrongly define a lot of it, to be honest, right? Was Dave able to, keep it together in a changing landscape? I think overall people are going to say he's raised the floor of the program and never hit his ceiling. I just don't think they've ever gotten over the hump, but he has certainly raised the expectations of, hey, we should, again, 6-6 for a historically 500 program, 6-6, should be what you expect. But I think state fans are expecting more, right? So he's raised the floor of the program. I think his legacy will be he's been good, not great. A lot of people are happy that he will be the first coach. In theory, let's say he retires, be the first coach to not be fired at NC State since Lou Holtz in '79, right? Unbelievable stat. Dick Sheridan resigned under health issues and questionable circumstances, whatever. But it would be the first one to have left on his own, which is unbelievable, right? You haven't been able to hire a guy that got hired away. Like I would love for NC State to be a stepping stone at that point, but we're not, and we haven't been. We typically fire our coaches. We just have made poor hires, but Dave has been good enough where he's got a lot of people who are Dave supporters, and he's got a lot of people who are like, I wish we get more out of him, right? If he would have just done X or Y, I think you could have gotten more out of him. There's very valid arguments on both sides of it. I think his legacy will be very split, but I think most people will be thankful for what he's done here. Just with a little bit of, man, I wish he could get over the top.
Everybody wishes that for
Sure.
every team.
Yeah, sure.
and especially with a fairly strong track record that he has had. And you're right,
Yeah.
he has raised that program up. It's just not hitting that ceiling, and that would be where you could say, hey, I can walk away now. So, and that would be a nice thing to go out on. Evan from the RedWhiteNetwork.com and co-host of Red White Podcast has provided our preview of NC State Wolfpack football. And thank you, Evan, very much for joining us and putting up with our typical shenanigans on this.
Anytime, fellas. Appreciate you having me.
Yep, thanks, Evan.
ACC Nation, your source for ACC sports coverage with Will and Jim. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on our podcast, streaming radio, and YouTube. Connect with us on Blue Sky, Reddit, Instagram, Threads, Mastodon, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn.